Hey, girl, what you doing in your house? I see you on that mic. I see that you hype. That's all I got. I was gonna do a freestyle, but my freestyle lasted. Oh, ça va bien, et toi?
Ça va bien? Mes amis. As much as I can get out.
Look, you're my love too.
I said mes amis, not what is it? Mi amor. No, is that Spanish?
Right. Yeah, mi amor is Spanish. Mes amis is the same thing in French.
I thought it was my friend.
Man, girl, it's been what? Count my
50 years. Black at it again for another not so private conversations with your long distance besties. Your favorite long distance besties.
Oh, okay. Celebrating Martini Mondays.
Clink, clink, Martini Mondays.
Sip, sip.
So for this week, we just gonna jump right into it because I've been seeing a lot of different podcasts and web shows and such talk about relationship stuff, and they literally dedicate their entire shows to discussing relationships and dating and singleness in sort of a superficial way. Like DJ Envy and his wife Gia, they talk about some serious stuff, but to me, they talk about it in such a non-adult way. It's kind of weird. And I notice it for a lot of even like lesser independent web shows or podcasts. Like they pose questions that are very polarizing, where like a lot of stuff has to do.
Give me an example. Expand on that. What do you mean?
Oh, I don't know. Like one question I was listening to was like, oh, can you be in love with two people at the same time? And it was like, this is not a black and white issue.
Right.
And I noticed like a lot of podcasts and these little shows, these web shows, they ask these questions on purpose. Like some things can be black and white, sure. But I think for a lot of these shows, and even like people who I know who like do Facebook lives and their own little podcast, like some things can be black and white, like I said, but there's like a very honest human gray area that I think a lot of shows and conversations, they're not fully exploring that gray area because the stark difference of opinions, like that's what's popular, that's what gets the people going. But I think that leaves room for a lot of like immaturity and not fully fleshed out conversations.
When they give their answers on these shows, do they dive into it, or it's really just yes and no that they're answering and not really expanding on
they're giving
their
to me, this is just me, they're giving their opinion, but they're not giving like any insight, anything that the listener could gain from it. So it's like it's more about entertainment, and it's not really about self-improvement or relationship building or just being better people when it comes to how we like navigate our real life relationships. So, but I say all of that to say that I don't want our conversations to just reflect, you know, the goofy stuff, the for entertainment only type of stuff all the time. Like I really do want us to be helpful with this platform. Like,
I think
looking at the numbers, I think we are doing pretty good for a brand new podcast. But when we explore these topics, like, and I know a lot of our friends listen, I truly want to be helpful. But also, disclaimer, I don't even feel completely qualified to speak about relationships. Like,
but I don't think it's about qualification. I think it's about experience. And if you have
that's what I was going to say.
You should be able to speak on it. And I feel like if we're giving our personal opinion based off of our experience and our truth, that we're not being black and white about it. We're actually like giving like something based on reality, not based on hypotheticals or, just based on our preconceived notions of what this is, because we already have had to evaluate a lot of preconceived notions we had about relationships, and we've kind of had to the way that we navigate in a relationship is not how we thought we would be navigating in a relationship before, when we did have those preconceived notions. So I feel like as long as we keep that up, that we're honest and telling the truth about relationships and not just what people see from the outside looking in. Because, a lot of people think, how many single people we hear say, oh, I wish we were in relationships, and we look at them like, girl.
I have a few friends who tell me that, like, oh, I really want a relationship. And I'm just like, but do you though? Because here's the reality of
every day. You're choosing that person every day, no matter what.
But so, yeah, I was going to say, like, I've been through my fair share. It's not that many, but it's enough for me of relationships, almost relationships, situationships, to be able to, at least say a little bit about certain things, but to still be open-minded enough to see all the different angles and the points of views of a situation. And so, like, of course, I'm still learning. We should all still be learning. Like, for instance, I've learned to never say never. Never say what I would do or wouldn't do in a particular situation, because truth be told, we don't know what we would do when we're put on the spot in a particular situation.
I don't know how many times,
especially when it comes to relationships.
I don't know how many times I've had to eat my words.
Insert foot in mouth. Yeah. So that leads me to this week's conversational topic. And this is going to be a continuation of the series that we first started when we started the podcast. We call it Relationships Get Ill. So this would be volume 2. And this conversation is going to center around closure. So last time we talked about communication, but now we're going to talk about closure. So the main question is it necessary to have closure conversations? So we're going to attempt to talk through this. And it might get a little dicey. We might have to figure some things out, like, for ourselves. But overall, like I said, this is going to be one of those conversations where it's not just black and white, I don't think. At least for me, I don't think it's black and white. I think we're going to really explore and learn a lot in this gray area. So, breakups. A lot of times when a couple breaks up, it's not just because of one thing, right? So it's usually like a combination of issues that lead to the end of the relationship. And a lot of times, one person or the other wants answers for why the relationship ended or why it didn't survive. And so insert this idea of closure, where whatever went on in the relationship, it happened, it's done. Now there's emotional attachment and pain, and we need to figure out what went wrong and be able to feel like we are okay enough to walk away. And so I guess closure is widely debated and it's tricky. And I see so many different conversations where people say, I don't need closure. Closure is BS. Right. And then I see people say, no, I need closure to be able to move on. I need to be at peace with what has happened to be able to close this chapter.
But doesn't it depend on, like, the situation? Because closure can look like so many different things to different people. So it doesn't necessarily have to be, a conversation, because like, using me, for example, with my past relationship, there really wasn't a conversation because the conversation had basically been had for the past 2 years. So it really didn't require closure because we knew all the reasons why our relationship wasn't going to work and why it wasn't working.
So it was like a mutual thing for you.
I wouldn't say it was mutual. What I would say is it was a hard breakup, and then we both just moved on.
So were you or was he left in the dark about what went wrong?
I don't think
It stopped you from moving forward?
Yeah, I don't think neither one of us was really left in the dark because, like I said, the last 2 years it was communicated, but that last few months, it really was like I was expressing things like, oh, I feel like things have been strained. I feel like this, and this. Like everything was communicated. So by the time it got to the breakup, it was like these things have been communicated so much between us, and neither one of us is willing to budge. So this is where we go from here. So
I think a lot of people, like they put too much of an emphasis on closure, but I do at the same time understand why certain people or certain situations need closure. But like you said, I think closure can look like a bunch of different things because when you think of, I think a lot of people's perception of closure is like the breakup is done. It has happened. Now we must reconvene to have a discussion on what happens.
I don't want to do that.
Right.
I don't do that.
I don't think that in itself is necessary. I've heard someone say that the closure talk, quote unquote talk, is just an excuse to have one last conversation with your ex.
That's what I was going to ask you. Do you think people go into a closure conversation with the intention of kind of trying to figure out what went wrong so they can get back with the person? I feel like a lot of times closure conversations is like a means for disappointment for some people. They just want to get disappointed.
I think it's going to inevitably lead to some disappointment, but I do think most people want or they go into a closure conversation because they're looking for answers about where the relationship went wrong. And then I guess if they know that it's done, like done, let's tie up these loose ends from this relationship. But a lot of people just don't think that closure is important. Like, are you a cut and dry type of person?
I wouldn't say I'm cut and dry, but I'm the type of person who understands that getting closure all the time isn't realistic. So when I don't have it, I look for different avenues where I can give myself closure. Whether it may be like talking to my therapist, writing in my journal, meditating, praying, just something, I guess personal closure is what you would call that.
Yeah.
But I really don't look for closure from other people because I have been someone who has been disappointed going into closure, and it wasn't a relationship, but not a romantic relationship. It was a friendship. But I went into this looking for that type of closure that we spoke about. And it was just a big letdown, a big disappointment for me. So I no longer just seek closure from other people. If it's there, I might be open to it. But if it's not, I'm just going to keep it moving. How about you? What do you feel? Do you feel like you're like a hard, this is it?
In certain situations, I have been the person that needed answers or I needed, because the relationship ended, whether I ended it or whether another person ended it or whether we split mutually, I've like gotten out of a situation not feeling at peace with the end of the situation. For me, closure it didn't look like me having a like closure conversation with that person, like walking into the conversation, like this is going to be our conversation that's going to give both of us closure about the relationship. It was more like we were just talking about whatever, and the person just said something off the chain, and I was like, oh yeah, this ain't gonna work. And I feel totally at peace with being able to finally walk away from this situation. And so for me, like, closure is being able to obtain peace no matter what it looks like, because it can look so many different ways. I just want to be at peace with the dissolution of this relationship. So
how do you bring yourself to peace? Is it that closer conversation?
I think it was important for you to mention that that you can do things for yourself to give yourself closure, because a lot of people say, well, I just need to know da 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 and I'm gonna be done. I need to talk to this person one last time so that they can give you something as far as closure for you to feel okay about the end of the relationship. But like you said, a lot of times that just leads to disappointment, because are you really going to hear what you want to hear? No, y'all could have been on two separate pages. So I think I think talking to your ex partner, or whatever you want to call them, I think that is a way that a closure conversation could be helpful. But there are so many different things that you could do to bring or to give yourself closure. So, my number one thing is going to be talk to a professional. If it's that bad, if you're in that much distress, find a way to talk to a professional about whatever has happened and whatever you are not at peace with. You could talk to a family friend, or family or friend, somebody that you trust. I think one of the number one ways that helped me give closure to myself was journaling. And a lot of people are going to say that, oh, I don't feel like writing nothing down. Like, I don't want to sit there. That's too much, or that ain't going to do nothing. But if you really sit down and dedicate some time to doing that, if you journal extensively all of the things you felt surrounding the breakup, and you really, really, really sit with that, a lot of times that will start to handle itself, and you won't even ever have to contact your ex person or partner. Like,
yeah, I really do believe in that. One of my personal activities, if I'm going through or let's say I'm just really pissed at somebody, I will actually write it down, wait a day, go back and read it, and see how I feel about it. And a lot of times I don't feel the same way.
Exactly.
So you're 100% spot on when you say that, because you will write things down, and just getting your feelings out on paper will just offer so much relief. And then when you go back, you're able to reevaluate, I guess, the feelings you were having and the thought process that you're going through, the mental state that you were going through at that time. So I agree 100%. I don't know why people don't journal more, especially when you're happy.
Right.
Because that's important.
Yeah, making those gratitude lists and stuff like that. Like, I think you'll find more peace in confronting whatever happened with your ex-partner by maybe writing them a letter or something like that without expecting a response. And they don't even ever have to get the letter. You could just write the letter, write down every single emotion you ever felt as it pertains to this relationship, and never send it to them. And I think I was reading this, that's what made me think about it. I was reading this article in Psychology Today where this lady was saying this specific type of writing, research shows that it can be effective in lessening post-dissolution distress. So at the end of the relationship, I'm in distress because now I have all these feelings, not just from the relationship, but from the breakup. And then you're able to examine the relationship through more of a redemptive lens, where you're focusing on the positive outcomes that come from the breakup instead of the negative event that happened, which is the breakup. And so when you write about your relationship in that way, I think it said like over the course of a week or something, it will actually reduce emotional suffering. And I was like,
I can see that. I can definitely see.
And you never
proof in
even
that.
ever have to lay eyes on that person or
Right.
speak to that person. But they said that what they don't recommend is that you try to just find this meaning in the split.
And that leads me to what I wanted to ask you. Have you ever went looking for closure and then it turned out you were actually trying to find some type of meaning in the split?
Oh yeah. Like a
Yeah.
relationship, a particular relationship was just like it just flipped my poor little world upside down. And I was like, this is a life-changing event. What am I going to do? What does this mean? Why is this like this? Like, and it really, it was just me being dramatic, I think, a little bit. But at the same time, I was looking for something to make sense that didn't necessarily, like, it wasn't necessarily supposed to make sense, or it was just not, it just wasn't what I thought it was. And I was, like I said, like either being dramatic or just thinking way too much because, you know, we do that.
Yeah, that's so true.
Think too much. But again, that just led to further distress. And of course, that led to me seeking closure from this person who didn't have it to give.
Have you ever like went to seek closure and it ended up being a reconciliation?
I don't think so.
Me neither.
I don't think so. Another closure moment, or I guess closure, came from an epiphany. And this is going to sound crazy, but I was doing something particular one day and it was like a light bulb just clicked on. And it was like, this is not your person. Right. This person will never be your person. This person will never be able to give you the things that you need. So did it. Now.
Shoot, that's okay. We've all had those moments.
Like it was as clear as day. It was like the Lord was like, it's over. Let it go. And it was like
parted.
But you know, have you ever like been in a situation where you are like mentally you are in turmoil and then all of a sudden like this wave of peace just washes over you, like, oh, well, that's that. Like it's just so easy to come out of. I've only experienced that one time in my life, and that's how I knew like closure doesn't have to be me talking to this person, because I didn't have to say 2 words to this person, but I was ready and at peace with the disillusion of that relationship.
That's why that closure shit is for the birds. Like, seriously, like you can literally heal yourself. You don't need somebody else to heal you.
You can. So circling back to the question, are closure conversations necessary? No, they're not necessary.
Yeah,
but
I don't
are
think
they
they're
helpful?
Necessary. Right.
They can be very helpful. Again, like we said, I don't have to have a closure conversation with my ex-significant other, but I can have a conversation with my family friend or my brother or my therapist or my journal. And I can realize some things that other person was probably never going to give me. And so how do I lessen the distress, basically? Like that was the main thing that I'm like, we're looking at other people to heal us or help us, but we can truly do that ourselves, because you're reaching out to your ex or whatever in hopes of finding closure and to feel better about this breakup. But you can find closure on your own first. And if you go ahead and do that before you reach out to another person, you will be better off. That's my personal opinion. That just tells me that if I'm on the hunt for peace and closure, I know that I'm in charge of how, when, why, and where I move on. that's just,
Amen.
that's just it.
So what is the positive side of closure to you?
I think after time, I don't think you should just jump head first into a closure conversation. Like, we broke up last week, let's have a closure conversation. Ooh. I think after
that's going to lead to some other stuff.
After time, I think closure conversations can be helpful. I think that after you have done your own self-healing, your own work, hopefully your partner has. If they haven't, you'll know.
Right.
Like right off the bat, you'll know. Yeah, you'll know if they have or have not. And it's up to you to be able to decipher, like, am I able to have a conversation with this person? Am I able to be cordial? Are we able to talk like mature adults? So that brings me to the conversation, which is actually real interesting. It brings us to the conversation between Lawrence and Issa when they went to dinner, and they had a very mature conversation about everything.
Yeah.
Like, that was beautiful to witness, because we know in real life, a lot of times it don't happen like that.
It do not. If that was real life, that would have been the
blueprint.
Perfect. Yeah, it's like the perfect scene of what closure would look like.
Mm-hmm. Like, like you said, though, that led to kind of like a reconciliation.
Yeah.
But a lot of times, closure conversations or just those types of conversations, they don't have to lead to a reconciliation, because people move on how they move on. But I think that was kind of beautiful to see. But disclaimer, relationships really just don't happen like that. If they do, more power to y'all, but I'm not putting no stock in it.
Have you seen those YouTube videos when exes sit across from each other? And
yeah,
how do you feel about those?
I always try to put myself in. I try to put myself in one of those people's like shoes, and I'm just like, I would never do this. And if I did, am I stirring up? Ooh, heck no. Am I stirring up old feelings? Old feelings, like feelings in general, are just so all over the place, and you can't trust your feelings. So I don't know. Like, old feelings can come back, and you could be wanting an ex from 7 years ago just because you haven't seen them in so long, and you just automatically think that they have grown and blah, 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 blah. They could be the same toxic person. You could be the same toxic person you were.
Ain't that true? Because it's easy to say you've grown if you haven't been put in the situation since. So you can say, oh, I've grown from that. But until like that test comes and you really prove it, are you? Because there's a lot of times that we've talked on the phone and I was like, I really feel like this, and this, and I really feel like I learned this, and this. And then I call you back a couple of weeks later and I'm like, so I need some advice because this is what I did.
This is what I did, and it wasn't.
Or honestly, the quote should be, I fucked up.
Exactly. Yeah, I don't think I ever want to be in that position. I've had conversations with people of the past way, 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 way after the fact, like years after the fact, and we're able to come to some sort of an understanding about why things didn't work. And it just was what it was. And it was like, oh, now I have more insight into why he did that. Now he has more insight into why I was feeling like this, or why I chose to say that or do that. But ultimately, we probably would have never gotten to that place to be able to have those conversations if I would not have had the conversation with myself first. If I wouldn't have like worked on dealing with me first. Because then again, I've had conversations with people where it didn't go well. And it was like, yeah, I remember why we stopped doing this, because ain't nothing ever gonna change. And that's why you have to prioritize yourself and finding closure for yourself. I think they're helpful, but I don't think they're necessary, especially if you are dedicated to self.
I just want to know because people always say when they find closure, it gives them the opportunity to move on and a feeling of control. Times when you have had those good conversations, did you feel that way when you walked away from that person?
Control?
Yeah.
I don't even think I was thinking about it in terms of control. I think I was really wanting an understanding between me and this other person. Like, if we were on two totally different pages at the time that we separated, how do we come to some sort of mutual understanding to where we don't hate each other, basically?
Right.
And we can be cordial with each other. I think that's really all I was looking for. I don't know if it was control.
You ever went into one of those conversations with, the feeling that we usually all get where he's the problem and you probably didn't really listen or take anything away from that conversation?
I'm pretty sure that has
Yeah.
happened because whoever he is, he's always the problem. Right? Like,
He definitely is always the problem.
when you're in a situation, it's always the other person. Just like the other person thinks it's always you.
But
we don't ever want to own up to our stuff.
Closure conversation, because a closure conversation or the intentions of one is to like give both people the opportunity to basically own up and apologize and like wish each other the best and move forward. But how can you really honestly wish someone the best and not acknowledge the things that you did?
That's why I say it takes for you to do your own work. You really it has to take, like, there has to be time. I'm not jumping out of a relationship and all of a sudden I know every single thing I did wrong. Like,
that's what I'm thinking. It has to be years, probably a few years, because there's no way in the real world. It's more like the Issa and Lawrence world, where it's going to be like 3 years until you really come to terms with your own faults.
I had to go through lots of other situations for me to look back and be like, oh, dang, I messed that one all the way up.
Right.
For me to finally open my eyes and be like, I could have been better. Here are the ways that I could have been better. It's just it's a very tricky concept. Like, closure does not come from the other person. Even if you have questions about their behavior or about their personality or why they didn't do this or why they said this or why they acted like that, closure it doesn't come from them. It comes from you being okay with you, being at peace with you and what you did and what you said and how you conducted yourself in that relationship. So I think you have a list of options that you can go through before you even ever have to have a closure convo with your ex-partner. And I think if more people knew that, they wouldn't be out here trying to seek closure from a person that's probably not going to give it to them, because every situation is not a Lawrence and Issa reconciliation or understanding type of situation. Like, people are out here setting cars on fire, slashing tires, breaking in houses.
We were like showing up to jobs.
People out here doing a lot because of hurt and because they don't know how to deal with that hurt, because they want answers and they want peace and they're looking for another person to give it to them, and it's not going to happen.
I don't think it's just the hurt, though. I think a lot of people, they don't know how to seek out closure, and they just never had like the proper guidance or the know-how. Like, no one ever taught them, like, if something bad happens to you or if you break up with somebody you've been with for a long time, like, here's healthy tips on how to handle it.
Here are some healthy mechanisms that you can use to get through this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know that.
So it's really just like a lack of understanding. Yeah, it's like a lack of understanding. So
or a lack of knowledge. Because if what can you understand if you don't know it? Like a lot of people just don't have the exposure to it. So that's why I was like, a lot of things are not black and white, and we can have these conversations where we get into the gray area of things and really talk about stuff that we all go through in a non-superficial way. Like it's not just, oh, well, I'm going to do this. If this ever happens to me, this is what I'm going to do. You don't know that because you've never been in that situation.
Right.
And you're not currently in that situation. So you can't speak on what you would do.
That's
lot
true.
of us like to say that, well, this is what I would do. Shut up, because you don't know.
That's a lie. Because
you don't even know what you would do. And that comes from personal experience, because I used to be that person. Oh, if this happens, I would just do this. I would never blah, 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 blah. Insert foot in mouth. Like, I've done some things that I'm not proud of. I've done some things that's totally outside of my character. And I had to take a step back and look at that like, girl, you said you would never, ever. And now look at you. You toe down.
I mean, hey, we've all done things. Some things I used to say I wanted to be a nun. And I stood firm. I stood firm on that for years. And then I found out what it really was.
I've said plenty.
Yeah, and those people who seek that out, I just feel bad for them, because I feel like the experience may be more traumatic for them, especially when you don't know how to like structure your emotions or balance them in any type of way. Like, like I said, like nobody ever showed you. And it's just like a feeling of loss, because let's face it, when you're in a relationship, especially like long relationships, you are structuring yourself around your partner, and you're structuring like your future around your partner. So when that breakup happens, it's like you're mourning like what was and what could have been. So I can understand how people want an answer for that. And I don't feel like, I just feel like it's not a need. I'm not saying it's not okay.
Right.
I just feel like the same energy you put trying to have this conversation with this person and telling this person all the ways that you have grown and apologizing for all these things, you should actually put the initiative to do those things that you say. And I feel like a lot of people, they go to the conversation before they put forth those actions.
Exactly.
So it's counterproductive, because it's a lot of times both parties. It's not like it's just one-sided. It's not like both of them going into it with a good headspace, matured, emotionally mature. It's not like that. It's one, the other, or none. And if it's either one of those three, it only creates a more toxic environment. It doesn't allow you to move forward. It doesn't allow anybody to learn anything from that situation. So all you're going to do is go forth and basically repeat those same characteristics that you displayed in that relationship, or by the end of that relationship. Because, once you've been in a toxic relationship for a while, you kind of grow into this toxic person. And then you just transfer that behavior onto the next person.
And that is what you call baggage. Nobody likes baggage, so don't be that person.
So I guess like what we're saying is you can get closure, but it might be best. It's always best if you get self-closure.
Yes,
that's what you should.
You can give yourself closure before you ever go seek out another person and, want answers or want to feel at peace with yourself from them. You have to feel at peace with yourself, for yourself first, from yourself first. Because nobody can really give you that. Like, again, closure conversations, they're not necessary, but they can be helpful. Just understand that they can look a totally different way from what idea you had in your mind about them, basically.
Definitely.
I'm glad we got to talk about closure because, like I said, sometimes relationships get ill and we have to learn how to do better with each other, with ourselves. These are our little learning lessons that we have when we are dealing with romantic relationships.
And I'm trying, because I'm not going to say I'm perfect and I practice everything I preach, but I try to heal myself before seeking it out from others. And I think that's what important is, like, you put in the work, like Mia said.
Before we go, I wanted to shout out a blackety black business this week. He is one of my friends, and he is also somebody that Eric White, aka Boop, aka Honcho, 1/4 of the Hookup Podcast. Eric has come out with his own clothing line recently. Now, this clothing line was inspired by Eric's daughter, mother, and sister. So it's inspired by women, but hopefully he'll release something for men soon. But this is just his way of giving back and showing his appreciation to them, which I think is really amazing, really cool to put the Black women in his life on a pedestal like that. If you guys want to check out and support this BBB, you can follow the Muse Instagram page at myōōz.apparel_, and we'll put the link to the profile in the description box for y'all. And if y'all want to follow Eric, aka Honcho, aka Boo, you can follow him at EYJR_, and we'll also put that link in the description box for you guys.
Check out his clothing line. He got naked girls on his clothing line?
I think he did. He has the outline. Yes. Oh. Yes. But I have a shirt. I have a crop top, and I love my crop top. I'm gonna have to post some pictures with it on.
I'm gonna check him out. LDBs, y'all should check out E White too. He looks like he has some really cool stuff. Blackety black business. We are definitely highlighting and supporting small Black businesses. But
y'all, seriously, check that out and support and let us know what y'all think. And LDBs, thank y'all again for listening in on another Not So Private conversation. And we'll talk to you guys next week. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much, long distance besties, for joining us again for another Not So Private conversation. Don't forget to check us out on Instagram at Jeanne V. Williams. That's at Jeanne, Jeanne V. Williams, and at Perfectly Mia. That's at Perfectly MIA. And if you have any topic suggestions or any questions, shoot us an email at notsoprivatepod@gmail.com.
Make sure you hit the subscribe button. We definitely appreciate it. Remember to leave a review on Spotify, Apple, and Google. You can also find us at Radio Public, Pocket Cast, Overcast, and Breaker. And you can find us on anchor.fm/NotSoPrivatePod. Now you can also hear us on YouTube. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, the Not So Private Podcast channel. Now, with all of that being said, join us next time for another Not So Private conversation.